Well, good Friday afternoon. Let's do RPOS Limited Execution Excellence Quick Tip number 6 today. But before we start on Quick Tip number 6, let's take a look at where we got so far. In Quick Tip number 1, we came to understand that basically immediately after we complete our current outage, we will have 80% of the scope that we need for our next turnaround execution. In quick tip number 2, we learned that at that same time, and I think we were, basing it on a 4-year turnaround and calling that T minus 3.75 years. At 3.75 years, we not only have a very solid 80% scope package, but we also know the date and the approximate duration of our next turnaround. In quick tip number 3, we learned that a turnaround is actually a continuous process. In order to be successful in any kind of significant processing facility, the turnaround is a continuous, non-stop process. It's important to get people thinking that way because a lot of the breakage we see in turnaround execution comes from really seeing it as individual events and managing them as individual events. There's a lot of improvement by making that simple step into recognizing it as a continuous process. In quick tip number 4, we accepted that, detailed planning is something that we are going to do. We are going to detail plan every single activity, every single task. Maybe we weren't really accepting that we want to do detailed planning, but we knew we want to practice modern cost control. And if the price entry is detailed planning, then we're going to pay the price entry. In quick tip number 5, since we are already going to be practicing cost control, let me pause there. When I'm saying the word practicing cost control, that's not any kind of a random statement on my part. I'm saying practice because cost control, modern cost control, the type of cost control I've been talking to you about is not a science. It is not an accounting principle. It doesn't have a right and a wrong. And you and your team will need to practice this to get good at it. But as you're practicing it, you want to also be able to take immediate action. What's the point in being able to forecast where you're going in the immediacy of the real world if you're not going to be able to do something about it? So we introduce dynamic schedule methodology, DSM. The point of bringing DSM into the equation is we have our cost control system, and if we're using DSM, then hopefully till tomorrow, when the cost management report comes out of finance, we'll have already be able to show the facility manager how, we knew that already yesterday and we took these actions. Not only that, because we're using DSM, we'll be able to show the facility manager at that time, we took these actions and this is the amount of influence those actions have so far had in, say, the last 18 or 20 hours. So that's all brilliant. So for quick tip number 6, first, let's just make one more point that I wish I'd have made a long time ago. Turnaround work, the actual work of turnaround, not the OPEX work, right? Not the CAPEX work, not the expansion tie-ins work. All these things that come in as a part of our turnaround because we happen to have the plant down. Turnaround work is primarily driven by regulatory and warranty and general maintenance tasks. Turnaround work is in fact routine maintenance. It's something that really can make a difference in your thinking when you understand that, because we think of it as this big one-off project that is going to be so different all the time, but it's not. It might only happen every 4 years or every 6 years or every 8 years, whatever the type of process happens to be. But when it does happen, it's routine. There may be adjustments to your ITPs, maybe your steel got old, or maybe the type of steel that you're using has QA saying, well, from now on the inside of your pressure vessels, they want you to buff all the longitudinal seams to bright metal and fluorescent mag all the longitudinal seams this year. So maybe there'll be a change in your ITP. It doesn't change the fact that what we're doing is in fact routine maintenance. So executing turnarounds throughout the industry, throughout the world really, in established facilities. So it takes a few years after startup before you would reach the point that I would call an established facility. But it is completely normal for established facilities to be spending up to 50% of their entire O&M budget executing turnarounds. And that's the facilities that are doing it well. It's entirely possible to spend a great deal more than 50% of your O&M budget executing turnarounds if you don't do them well. So that brings me to what I want to end with today. I want to ask this question to everybody out there. Why would we even dream to manage half our budget with part-time side-of-the-desk resourcing? Okay? Why wouldn't we have the same level of care and control and resourcing that we apply to the other half of the budget? So just as an example, if you're a facility and you're running 5 shift supervisors and 2 maintenance supervisors and a plant manager, why would your turnaround team be staffed any less? It's the same amount of money. If you're doing a good job, it's the same amount of money. If it's turning out that it's actually 75% of your O&M budget, that just furthers my argument. Maybe if you had a turnaround team, you wouldn't have that problem. Have a very good weekend. I hope everybody does. I'll talk to you again next week. This has been RPOS Limited Quick Tip number 6. Please click on my subscribe button.